good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome again to another episode on Talk Architecture Podcast. This one that I have for you today is a reply to an architecture student who is in his second year. And now and then he does message me on Instagram, and he happened to be present at a talk that I was giving or had given, and he wanted to actually ask me a question at that time, but he didn't. But so he connected with me again and asked about what would I change in architecture education, because I mentioned about architecture education is the one thing that needs to change. So I actually replied to him, and I want to expand on what I replied to him. When you think about change, it is not easy to change, obviously. We are kind of comfortable with what we have, what we've been doing, the routines, the culture that has been established in whatever that we do, and in this case, architecture education. So I thanked him that he enjoyed the talk last Sunday, and with regard to the question that he asked, what I would change in architecture education, I tried to address on that day when speaking about our graduates. The main issue that we see is that many graduates lack confidence when they finish the course. So because he's still in the second year, if he is truly interested in architecture to be a career, he will make it. There's no doubt about it. And it really comes down to whether they identify themselves as a potential architect at that stage, in the second year, or even in the first year. If he believes genuinely, and he genuinely love it and see it as something that he wants to do for the long term, he will succeed. And we would like to think of it the same for everyone else, that they have this spirit or the desire to be an architect. But not necessarily everyone has the same experience, or they are the same in terms of their characteristics. Yeah, they're all different people. So what could make them doubt themselves? There could be challenges in the interactions during crit, desk crit, group crit, presentation, their interactions with their tutor or with their friends. Usually it's with the tutor, because a lot of things happen and could change people in the studio, in the interactions. So if they are not completely sure yet that they want to be an architect, that's perfectly fine as well. They could recover from the early years, and they still have the third, fourth, and fifth years to decide if architecture is the right path for them. So if they're persistent and they feel that vision of being an architect so strongly in their minds and in their hearts, it will happen that they finally identify themselves in the third, fourth, or fifth years. So in any case, it is always valuable to earn both a bachelor's and a master's degree in architecture. So the student also mentioned that designer feels more emotional in direction I see design as having two sides. One stylistic or more emotional. I like to call it emotional design. And the other one is logical and technical. So it's also knowing that the design can be more emotional or design can be more logical when you are a student in architecture or student studying architecture. How you would feel that. Of course, it is different for everyone. But in general, these are the things that could happen. As we know, for logical and technical aspect of design, even civil engineers, they focus on the logical side, but they are not architects. So I'd like to think that sometimes we tend to veer towards feeling like a civil engineer or an engineer. And I'm not straitjacketing or put engineers and architects in different categories. But if I were to argue that if you are not capable of emotional design or stylistic design and more towards logical and technical, you're more of an engineer. Maybe we can call you an architectural engineer rather than a design architect. And it has been proven in practice that some architects go more towards a logical sense of design rather than an emotional sense. So we know that based on this argument, architects can do much more. We can move into graphic design, product design, filmmaking, and many other fields. It has been proven that, based on what I know from my students, my ex-students who graduated, they are successful in this field, being an artist, for example, a videographer, publishers, a lot more. Sometimes they dabble in design on the side while doing the other non-architectural work as the side work. That could happen as well. This is because we are trained to observe things deeply. Why the architects can do so much more than the engineers? Because we're trained to observe things deeply, analyze them. There is this humanities or arts sort of aspect to what we do, which is more than science. You know, looking back at the argument about whether architecture is more art than science or science than art, I came to the conclusion that we are basically scientists with architectural bent or the artistic bent. So why do we have this artistic bent? This is something that people kind of difficult to negotiate or understand because it seems so subjective. But then when we started understanding about qualitative research, qualitative aspects to understanding the world rather than subjective or quantitative, we start looking at the characteristic, because when we talk about qualitative research, we are interested in who is giving the anecdote, who is giving the answers to the interview, what is the demographics, what age is that person, what do they do, and and there is so much different methods in research that we could employ in order to get better results and findings. So we start talking about observation, which is a lot of what we do in qualitative research. We can observe things deeply rather than just quantifying them. We can also when we observe them deeply, we can analyze them and then synthesize solutions from a client's brief. And if the client is not the person who is funding the project, when we think about the client as the user, we can expand the brief further by adding more to what we observe and analyze, and then we interpret from that to synthesize solutions. Therefore, the client's brief is a starting point. They are the ones funding the project, as I mentioned. So you need to understand what they truly want. So if the funder is someone who is a benevolent patron or someone who would prefer you to go and make it better for the users, then you must find out what the users want. So if you have a project that is close to the client's heart, the one who's funding the project, you listen carefully, and what they say, they could say the building has to be a signature building based on your style, and I don't really care what you're going to do, but you're going to make it something that is artistic, moving, whatever, that they want you to do, and you do so. But the client could also say, you've got to make this very functional and that people are happy using them. So then you need to actually interview the potential users or the users. So the client's brief, as I said, is the starting point. They're the ones funding the project, so you must understand what they truly want. Then you bring your own perspective on how to make it better. And that's the reason why they appoint you, why they give you money to do this work, so that you can bring your own perspective to how to make it better. You will do the magic. You, the architect, can bring emotion, can bring your own style into the project to make it connected somehow to the client or the people using it. So this leads to a conversation where you gently educate the client so they can understand and support your design decisions. I had a conversation with an architect who does mostly private dwellings the other day, and she said, no, so it's really difficult to deal with clients. Sometimes they want to be the architect, so that's messing the design process or what they're doing, obviously. So when clients want to be the architect, they will say, in the discussion, if you want to bring forth a discussion on something, you'd want the client to actually think they're the one who came up with the idea, although you were originally, and you say, oh, that's a good idea. I find this quite similar to being involved in an academic as well, that your boss wants at the end for you. You have to deal with your boss, because your client is your boss, right? You want to deal with your boss so that your idea becomes their idea and they think it's from themselves. If you can cope with that situation. A lot of us don't feel comfortable with that at the end of the day, because you feel like there is no you in that conversation, or there is just serving the other person. But then there's something, probably you will get better clients in the future and you won't have that problem so much. We're talking about architecture practice again now. Or that you're able to choose the client that you want. So depending on if you're a sole practitioner, you would, if you want to still be a sole practitioner and still dealing with clients, hopefully you establish more and well and good and that you can dictate or you can be more persuasive in your ideas and stick to it. So what would the second year student who asked me that question earlier know about all this? They don't really, because they have to go through this experience when they're about 30 something or 40, then they will know. But usually after graduation, after fifth year, they would go and work with a large company and they would try to do their professional license. Anyway, as a second year student, one of the most important skills to start developing is confidence in making decisions. There's a load of thing there, in confidence in making decision. When you think about life, it's all about making decisions and having to stick to that decision. And it's a huge thing for a second year student to do. And when they make that decision themselves, that is the sort of design that I want to put up for my presentation after consultation with the lecturer. You as an academic, if you are an academic, you would often be in a situation in the crit where the students are just presenting and then suddenly things go wrong and then they look at you because as if you are at fault for them doing the design that they followed your instructions or they followed your ideas or thinking. So, I had learned that we need them to make the decision based on their own thought process, on their own what they come up with. And in design thesis or the final year, if you have students who are still latching on to the tutor in terms of confidence or in terms of making a decision, it's a bad sign, because what happened to them in the second year? They were spoon-fed, evidently. Yeah, and in the third year, they were spoon-fed again, evidently. And the fourth year, the same. And that's why in the fifth year, they still want to be spoon-fed. The spoon-feeding is bad for students of architecture. So in the second year, you need them to make the decisions themselves. Because often students will, during a desk crit, look at you and say, okay, I like to confirm my design. Yeah, confirm. But then it's their design, it's not the lecturer's design. So, it's the interaction, it's the way we talk to them, it's the way how they arrive at the solution that makes it their design, not the lecturer's design. And when they make mistakes and they learn from their mistakes because it's their design, they will understand and they will start again. And that's how confidence is built. Confidence is the key to wanting to make decisions. Dealing with your lectures now is excellent practice, I said to the second year student. Later, those lectures will become clients. Whether it's master planning, site planning, building interiors and furniture, the key is to understand the problem clearly and know how to solve it, and then present your solution convincingly. You'll come up again, these lectures again. Even if they're not in the second year, later they'll pop into the scenario again and say, hello, there you are again. I saw you in second year last time. Now you're in the fourth year. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Right? So I've seen many of my former students thrive in different ways. An example is Farah, which is a very successful artist and a former student. Her husband, who is also one of my ex-students, was highly skilled and could have become a very good architect himself. But he chose instead to support her business through graphic design and other creative work. So I see that when students decided later when they graduate, they're confident to be an architect, but maybe due to circumstances, they, they they prioritize other things, and in this case, they decided to be doing more graphic design and other creative work. So I would say categorically that there is nothing wrong with that path. Life circumstances often shape our choices. In the end, most architects are not running their own businesses unless they choose academia or other non-commercial roles. Yes, architecture business, the business of architecture is commercial. There is something to do with selling a product and services. And we cannot deny that. And learning business in architecture school is imperative because of that. And that is in different episodes that we have, right? Okay. So unless you choose academia, which I did, but I never actually lost touch with design all those years until now. I'm doing design, but more in specialization. So I still need to sell my products and like services. So I'm bad at it. But I'm trying to learn. But being an academic is kind of like being academic was kind of entitled when you think day after day, month after month, year after year, you're teaching students of architecture and your salary comes in and you don't really think about business. So there is, excuse me, the sort of people, excuse me, that academics are. And that's why in teaching students of architecture, we need to also have practitioners coming. Excuse me. Again. It's an important point, actually, about how we in academia, we think that we can take care of the students until first year to fifth year with our own philosophy and our own practice and get other critiques to come in who could be similar to us, other academics, or could be practitioners who doesn't want to rock the boat and follow the academics. Students are never exposed to the business side of architecture, nor to the confidence in designing and understanding about the architectural practice as a commercial endeavor. So I told the second year student, my advice to you is to keep listening attentively to the dialogues and conversations in class. Observe carefully during your crit sessions. Maintain a journal or sketchbook where you actively try to solve problems. And I pray to God that the sort of people that come your way are those who could challenge you or could ask you to think differently so that you would not be comforted in a comfort zone, thinking that you're doing right, building false confidence rather than real confidence in making your decisions. So for the second year student, I said, let that inner dialogue, curiosity, and commitment to your work guide you. Curiosity is underestimated here. And that inner curiosity will make you, will give a difference to your learning capacity and how you develop during when you're studying. And perhaps that curiosity could develop into that person or that characteristic that asks questions more, hence building more confidence in yourself. If you nurture these habits, they will keep you grow into a confident and capable student, capable architect in the future. That was an email. I think I emailed a student. Much of the content I've discussed today, apart from how I expand for the podcast episode, was what I told the second year student. I would I would give a topic. This topic would be: do not spoon feed your student because they will not be confident in making decisions. Yeah, it would be something like that. This could be one of the number one. You know what I say? What are top 10 things that you need to do in architecture school? So, but this is for the tutor. Although this message was for the second year student, the underlying message is strongly given to the tutor, to the academic out there. And there's a lot of things here that have been touched upon. And I hope that this episode could give fruit for the thoughts, for what could make our graduates confident when they finish the course. And the issues of lack of confidence seems to be the common thing. We've seen it being quoted and being expressed in many social media platforms, especially threads. I find it in there mostly because that's where the millennials go to, and the Gen Zs as well. And usually those fresh graduates, they would keep quiet, but those who have been around for a few years, they would voice this out. So, academics out there, all students of architecture, I hope that this episode give you some thought about what's the problem happening in our profession, especially for the graduates. And I have touched a lot of these earlier, but we could always discuss this further. Thank you very much.